Welcome in. The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. And welcome to our opening kickoff presented by Kickoff Coffee. Make sure you are checking them out, kickoffcoffeeco.com. 10% of all of their sales goes to soccer-based youth development organizations worldwide. We're really happy to have them on as a partner. You know, everything that we try to do for Soccer for Good, Kickoff Coffee right in the same wheelhouse. Also, don't forget, you can go to their website, Soccer Down Here 15, to receive 15% off of your purchase. So you can do good and you can actually get a good deal. So we're going to talk a lot of U.S. Open Cup today. Obviously, the quarterfinals are set. Niko Moreno will join us in hour number 2. But I kind of wanted to start with just a little bit of the lay of the land of the quarterfinals of the Open Cup. It's been a while since we've gotten this far in an Open Cup. We're going back to 2019. So we got to remember the magic of the Cup and how often Cup sets happen and how often they happen as we get to this stage. In the previous 10 Open Cup tournaments that have been completed, the quarterfinals featured all MLS teams only one time. Yeah, I think there is a conversation about MLS dominating the Open Cup, which, look, it's true. You haven't had a lower division team win it since 1999, but they don't dominate every single game in every single round. Cup sets happen. One time out of 10, the final 8 were all MLS. But this is where it gets really tough for your Cup set winners. And right now you got 2 left. Union Omaha from the 3rd division, Sacramento Republic from the 2nd. Both were called in different ways on yesterday's show, which is crazy. Only 2 lower division teams in the last 10 years have made it to the semifinals. Richmond Kickers in 2011 and FC Cincinnati when they were in USL in 2017. Can Union Omaha do that? I don't think they're going to be too afraid of sporting Kansas City with everything that Kansas City's had to deal with this year. Can Sacramento do that? A little bit tougher road for them, but it's not impossible for Sacramento. Not a great season for them, but they are kind of rescuing things with a great Cup run. They beat San Jose last night. Union Omaha has been the story of the tournament. The USL League One teams have really been the story of the tournament so far. Great record for them. We were in Greenville a couple of weeks ago, and we talked to everyone with the Triumph, and Doug Irwin was telling us about increased competition opportunities between USL League One and USL Championship. Whenever there's a cup set, whenever there's a lower division team that beats a first division team in any league worldwide, you always get people coming out saying, see, it's not that big of a gap. It's not that big of a gap. There's a gap, and we know there's a gap. That's why it's not 8 USL League One teams or 8 USL Championship teams or a mix. It's 6 MLS teams and then 1 and 1. But if there's anything that stood out to me in this tournament is that the gap between USL Championship and USL League One, not that big. And it'll be really interesting how USL chooses to capitalize on that. They've talked about their own League Cup. Does that happen here soon? It'd be a great time to do it if you can fit it into the schedule and make it make sense. And more importantly, sell it and have it be something that people turn out to see. Do you see promotion relegation in USL? Is that something that they consider? It's a different business structure entirely to MLS. One thing that people always kind of leave out when they're talking about promotion relegation with MLS is the business is different. And the business for MLS was set up the way it was to protect the investments because you were trying to get investments. Now you have more investment, but still one of the appealing pieces of it is it's a protected investment compared to other teams in the world. USL, a little bit different conversation, but if you bought into USL Championship recently and then you get relegated and somebody bought into USL League One at a lower number and then they get promoted, it's going to be a little hard to reconcile because those prices are not the same. So how they handle that, how they create it will be interesting. I think the first step is the USL League Cup. A great opportunity for USL to create something of their own that should be incredibly compelling, because the big story of this tournament to me is how good the USL League One third division teams have looked, not just because Omaha made it to the quarterfinals and has beaten a couple MLS teams, but how they've competed across the board against USL championship teams and everybody else. It's been very, very impressive. Union Omaha's run incredible. There's the flip side of that, and we're going to get into it with Jarrett Smith and John Nelson here in just a second. What does this mean for Minnesota? What does this mean for Adrian Heath? Let's see if there are opinions to be had from these folks. Jarrett, how you feeling about Adrian Heath this morning?
I'm feeling like Adrian Heath has one more job in professional soccer than I have right now, and we should probably both have the same number. And I'm not saying I should be hired by anybody.
I hope you're not. I don't know what your coaching certifications are, to be honest.
I don't have any.
That's about what I figured, but I wanted you to say that, not me.
This is the kind of run that gets a coach fired a lot of times. This is I will repeat my comparison because it means something to me in that Minnesota has kind of pulled an Atlanta Falcons. You got on the doorstep in 2020. You went to Seattle. You were up. You were on the way to MLS Cup, and you're probably feeling like you could have put a better fight up against Columbus than Seattle did. But you spit the bit in the last 5 minutes of that game against Seattle, and you lost in the Western Conference Final, and it's never gotten better. Everybody and their mother, including us, pegged you as a team to watch for 2021. You never got out of first gear. I think you lost your first 4 or 5. You couldn't score goals. It never really consistently got better. There were some stretches, but it wasn't consistent. You got in on the last day of the season. Actually, I can't remember if they were the team that was going to be, that could have been on the outs had Pro not made their terrible mistake. I'm sorry, they were 7th, so they would have been fine. You backdoored your way in the last minute, like got a penalty at the very end of your last game to secure a playoff spot in 2021, and then it went with a whimper. And now 2022, you can't score goals consistently. You're heliocentric as hell with Reynoso, and you have 2 DP strikers sitting on the bench who are not getting in ahead of Robin Lod. And credit to Robin Lod, he's been really good. He has rescued them a lot.
Well, did you happen to see how at least one of them looked last night? This is the reason why they're not getting in.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with Adrian Heath making wrong decisions. It's
scouting at that point.
It's Luis Amarilla and Adrian Hunau. And Amarilla was signed before. He had an ankle injury. He didn't live up to the previous billing. They go back to the well to bring him back this year. They bring in Hunau last year.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one can consistently get playing time, and in a game against
neither one can earn it. More importantly,
well, no, I mean that's why they can't get it, because they don't earn it, and they don't. And when they get an opportunity in the cup, they don't seize it. And both were essentially called out by Adrian Heath afterwards. He said, "If you don't approach the game properly, these are professional kids who, for some of them, it might be the biggest game they ever play." In fairness to them, they played it like it might be a huge game for them, and we didn't. So many of ours just coasted through the game and thought that will be enough. It's not. I hear all that, and I get it, and I think he's right. But ultimately, this is not an isolated situation when it comes to Adrian Heath. Let's go back to that Western Conference final in 2020.
Yeah.
Minnesota has a 2-goal lead in the 67th minute. They give up 3 goals in the last 15 to Seattle. It's in Seattle. No subs from Minnesota. No changes. No nothing, as their season is falling apart in front of them. They give up the goal to Will Bruin in the 75th, and then Rui Diaz in the 89th, and then Gustav Svensson 90+3. They made a sub after that. That part was one of the most baffling things I've ever seen watching a tournament game, a Western Conference final. You don't do anything to change the momentum, which is clearly going against you. And it's been downhill ever since. And it's even further downhill now. Where does the hill end for Minnesota? And we've talked about hot seats. It's an easy conversation to have, and it's always, I think, an interesting one to kind of get the temperature of the league. I don't know if it's a hot seat or not, because I don't know what the ambition is in Minnesota, to be perfectly honest.
That's the next part of this conversation, right there.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is the next part of it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but Minnesota, let's go back to the beginning. They come into the league. Yeah, they had been working on coming into the league for a while. It was a little bit of a late approval. They got a little bit of a late start. They were building a stadium. There were things that, all right, it might take you a little bit longer to get where you want to get. That's fine. That's understandable. Coming out and saying it's going to take 2 or 3 years isn't always a good look, and it didn't help their cause to me. But then they have invested. They have spent money. It's not that they're an unambitious club that's not spending money. They have spent some money. They have made some good signings. At the very beginning, they made some bad signings. It wasn't even about like not trying to invest big money at the beginning while they're renting a stadium that didn't really suit them. They made bad signings. You can not invest a lot and still make good signings. I think that has to be understood, especially in MLS, where you've got a lot to pull from at the kind of pricing you're talking about. You've got a lot of players who would be interested in coming here for good, decent money, maybe good money compared to where they are. And they made bad signings in that world. Then they invested more, and they've made some bad signings, a few good ones, some bad ones. None of that even matters to me. My question about their ambition at this point is, it's obviously trending the wrong way, and it's not a short-term trend. They reached that crest. I mean, I don't even want to give them Falcons consideration. Falcons got to a Super Bowl and had a lead late in the Super Bowl. They didn't even get past their conference final. And it's been downhill ever since. And not like a little bit. Not a little bit either. They barely got in last year. They're not looking good this year. They're wildly inconsistent. You obviously have issues if you can't get up for an Open Cup round of 16 match at home. You obviously have issues.
In a game you had a lead in, man. Like
an
early lead.
You had a lead.
You had an early lead where it should have been, okay, we got this early lead. Let's go ahead and kill this off. Mm-hmm. We can stretch our legs out and build some comp. Nope, you can't.
You got an early lead from Hunau in the 6th minute. But there's a lot of different aspects to this. Look in the stands at this game. Not much. They didn't even report attendance from what Soccer America had. It didn't seem like a big deal. It wasn't made as a big deal. Minnesota feels like a club that this should be a big deal. It's not. I don't know what is a big deal to Minnesota at this stage. Is the season a big deal? Is winning a big deal? Is any of this a big deal? Is having a couple of guys on your roster, they're designated players that can't earn a spot, is it a big deal that they can't do that? Like, what is the big deal to Minnesota at this stage? Because I don't know what's important anymore to them.
I can tell you it's frustrating to me watching it, because we've seen when they were young, and then when they invested and they were really kicking into gear, people were there. Like, people wanted to be successful.
And people are there for league games.
Absolutely.
I don't want to act like they're not showing up for the league games, but they didn't make this game a big deal to their fans, let alone to their players.
Yeah. The stands were empty. I mean, they were empty and a half. It wasn't just empty. It was empty and a half there. There was no home atmosphere, nothing for the players to draw on, no kind of encouragement, unless you're talking about the fans, the parliament that made it from Omaha for that kind of encouragement for their players. They showed up. Omaha fans made the trek from Omaha to Allianz to show support for their team in this game. You got none of that from the Minnesota United fans. That place was
hold on, John. Let's be fair. You're talking about the most hardcore of the Omaha fans who made the trip. The most hardcore of the Minnesota fans were there the same way. It's the casual fans. It's the people that you got to sell and make understand this is a big deal. Didn't. And I don't know what the promotion was, if there was any. I don't know what the talk about this game was. I mean, Adrian Heath said, he talked about it. You got to come out. You got to do this. It didn't look like it. And all of that to me means that it's gotten a little rotten in Minnesota right now. And they've got to do something about it, or it's just going to continue to fizzle, because it's definitely a problem right now. There's no way around it, and they can't stick their head in the sand anymore about it.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear, like, this whole conversation isn't meant to detract from Omaha. Omaha went out there, went down early, and fought their way back, got it tied just before halftime, which you would want to do in that situation. Like, let's get a goal right before the half, go in and recollect ourselves. They do. They come out, they get the second half goal, they defend well. I think Minnesota puts one off the crossbar near the end, and
yeah, very late.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take away from anything Union Omaha did, because it's awesome, because they play really well. They earned it. But on the other side of that conversation, on the other side of that coin, man, Minnesota, I don't, after everything that happened in 2020 and the fact that it's never gotten better, and in fact it's regressed since then, and now you have this, and it's just so lifeless. And what is it going to take, Minnesota? Like, this is the kind of thing around the world when a manager does this, where it's been inconsistent and flat and uninspired, and then he goes and loses a cup tie to a team from a lower division. That's generally when the guillotine falls.
Mm-hmm. Do we see that? We should after a loss like this. But considering all of the evidence that has been presented here, do we see that? And that, to me, is the larger question about the ambition of Minnesota United here. The longer that they delay any kind of a decision involving Adrian Heath, the more I'm inclined to sit there and say that, that, all right, we're happy with where we are, we're cool, and we'll just kind of keep doing what we're doing. And that should be a concern to fans of Minnesota United in a situation like this.
Yeah, I mean, last year they were 13, 11, and 10. They had a -2 goal differential. They were 5th in the Western Conference last year, but knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. 2020, the COVID year, they were 9, 5, and 7, so they made the Western Conference
so
final.
much fun in that playoff run too. Go back and watch those games; like, they were fun. It was Kevin Molino was just absolutely just pillaging every game.
Yeah, the 1 year of the last 10, he was healthy, it feels like. 2017 and 18, they were bad. They were awful. They lost 38 games in 2 years. 2019, they were 4th in the conference, which is where they finished in 2020. That's the thing, is they made a run to the conference final. They've never finished higher than 4th in the conference in the regular season. They've only had a positive goal differential twice out of 5 years in the regular season. Their highest points per game total was 2020 at 1.62. That was their highest. It has not been good. And there's so many different questions you can ask. And look, I bring this up because Minnesota came in same year as Atlanta United. Atlanta United had a long run up to launching the team. They had a longer run up than Minnesota. They didn't have an existing team like Minnesota did, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on how you spin it. It ultimately was nothing for Minnesota. They didn't build a good team year one. They didn't seem to have much of a scouting apparatus. They didn't seem to really have much in the way of forward thinking in year one or year two. And it's just not good enough, because you are going to be compared, if you are Minnesota United, at all times to what Atlanta United's done. And look, Minnesota built a stadium, and it's a great stadium. They haven't done anything when it comes to homegrowns or developing players. They actually basically shut down their academy at one point. I don't know how many homegrowns they've signed. I want to say 1 or 2. I think they have a goalkeeper who's with Minnesota United 2 right now, who is all over the map. They haven't put it together. And look, if it takes you a little longer, what Atlanta United did in year 2, that's really hard to pull off. Nobody else has matched that. Chicago's the only one who did any better, and that was the 3rd year of the league in their first year. Okay, you want to say that's not a fair comparison because Atlanta United's an outlier in that realm? That's fine. That's completely cool. But where's the progression? The progression got to a 1.62 points per game year in 2020, where you finished 4th in the Western Conference, 9th overall in the league, and lost badly in a game that seems to have done some serious damage to the team's psyche. And now it's slid backwards. You went from 1.62 points per game to 1.44 last year to right now 1.38, and bounced in the round of 16 in the Open Cup. Is that good enough for Minnesota? Shouldn't be. Good fan base, but man, they're being tested right now, and they shouldn't have to go through that. Feels like it's time to make a statement about what Minnesota is here to do, and I don't really have the answer on what that is right now.
I mean, this is you expect a level of ambition. I mean, we had this conversation last year in Atlanta with Gabriel Heinze, and it's not the same situation. I certainly never got the sense that like players weren't playing hard for Heinze even in the last game. Go back and watch the New England game where they lost at home. Guys were still busting their asses for 90 minutes. But it wasn't working, and you made a change. And however you feel about that, you decided to make a change because it wasn't fitting what you were expecting. Minnesota, like, is what's next for Minnesota? Are they just going to kind of ride this out? Do they wait till the off season? Jason, I know it mentioned last night, like, we'll get to the other Open Cup games. There was an Open Cup game in Kentucky that has a second division coach that certainly warrants merit if you want to start looking at that level again. Although at the same time, I don't know if some people might be spooked off because of the O'Connor issue when he went from Louisville to Orlando. I don't know if people, keep that bias in their head, right or otherwise. But yeah, I don't know about like.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know
wouldn't
what
be fair to Danny Cruz, in my opinion.
No, it's not fair to Danny Cruz at all. But
when you look at the way that the teams played, you looked at O'Connor's teams and you look at Cruz's teams, it's night and day.
Dude, Cruz's team is just. I know Nashville won that game last night. Louisville's so much fun.
Yeah, Louisville's a good team. They're a good team. They easily could have won that match, but they just couldn't get it over the line. That's the difference, and that's the thing, and that's why it's twofold. That's why I think people running with narratives about there's a cup set, so see there's no gap between MLS and the rest of the country. That's not true. There were 2 cup sets. There's 6 teams in the quarterfinals here. But when it happens, and this is why you can't downplay it. It's why you can't say, there's no real difference. So if Union Omaha goes to Minnesota and wins, it's not that big of a deal. No, it is a big deal. It's a huge deal. Because Nashville didn't play great, wasn't able to dominate a game on the road, by the way, in Louisville with a good crowd. They weren't able to dominate that, but they found a way to get it done because of their quality. You bring on Mukhtar off the bench, you get it done. Minnesota could not get it done at home with a lead. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. Heath said it's embarrassing. Yes. Said it was a comic goal, the first goal that they gave up. Yes. He said they had enough talent on the field to win. He said, quote, "It's my responsibility to make sure they don't play like that." Yes, that is entirely accurate. And the question now is, what do you do? May 17th. So 9 days ago, Pioneer Press and Andy Greeter said that Adrian Heath held a team meeting before training. Hadn't been a lot of those over the last year or so. Main theme was about accountability from Heath on down. That was 9 days ago. They're out of the Open Cup now, losing to a third division team. And I mean, playing at the same level. They had more of the possession. They had 6 shots on target to Omaha's 4. They were at home, so they should have had more of the play. So, I mean, I don't even want to say like they outplayed Omaha, really. I don't think they did. I don't think Omaha demonstrably outplayed Minnesota either. Let's not get things mixed up here. But you got to win that game. And if you have a meeting 9 days ago about accountability from the top down, and this is the performance you get, I don't know how you continue. I don't know how you can continue and think that this is the way to go. Now, of course, after that team meeting, and this is the problem with Minnesota. This is it entirely. So after that team meeting, that's on the 17th, as was reported, they go to Dallas, and they win against a good Dallas team, a Dallas team that is a cup contender, in my opinion, or can be. Adrian Heath asked about if it was the best result of the season. He ended his answer on the, quote, nonsense that people write about Minnesota and added, quote, it's outside noise that starts getting louder. All these social media idiots who want to put things in and write about stuff. That was the weekend. Now it's embarrassing, and it's his responsibility that they didn't play well, et cetera, et cetera. It's all over the map with Minnesota. That's not sustainable. That's not a recipe for success. You can't get a win, puff your chest out, and call everybody idiots and talk about outside noise and how it's stuff and it doesn't mean anything. It's not smart and it's not right. And then go and do this. You can't do that. Because when you do, that outside noise is pretty loud right now. And all those social media idiots maybe don't look so stupid, do they? You can't do that if you're Adrian Heath, because, man, that stuff comes back to find you. I don't see how you continue. And if you do, and this is the issue, and this goes back to a conversation we had, a couple of weeks ago, I think, at this point, about ambition and how for some it's trying to be treated as a bad thing to say you want to win trophies. And if you don't, then see, you failed, you lied. No. Ambition is making a change when it is obvious a change needs to be made. When you have a team meeting, stressing responsibility, then you get a win, then you come out and you call people idiots and you talk about outside noise getting louder and they don't know what they're talking about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you lose to a third division team in the Open Cup and you talk about responsibility again. Ambition is showing that that's not acceptable anymore. And I don't know if it is or it isn't in Minnesota, to be honest. I don't know if it is acceptable at this stage, but the chest beating of everybody's idiots except for us after a win, and then we've got to take responsibility and yeah, it starts with me and it's my fault that we don't play well, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that whiplash has got to stop for Minnesota fans' sake. It's not getting them anywhere.
And you've got NYCFC coming to your place this weekend.
They'd probably lose that game anyway. I mean, that doesn't change anything. Like, that, I don't care. It doesn't matter if who's coming. It doesn't matter if, the Florida Soccer Soldiers were coming in for a friendly this weekend. It doesn't matter. Sorry, Florida Soccer Soldiers. I'm not trying to throw strays at you, but it has nothing to do with it. You don't fire him because NYC's coming, because you're not going to fire somebody and expect that you beat NYC on a regular basis. You make a decision because it's the long-term health of it. This weekend's schedule has zero to do with this decision. You make a decision here because it's the right move. And honestly, your right move might be just get through this weekend. You go into the international break, and that's where you make your change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You could do it now. I mean, you could easily do it now and have the staff take over if they want to. I don't know how much would stay. I don't know what the plan would be for that. I have no idea about any of that with Minnesota at this stage. But you got one game to play. You got a couple weeks. It might be just get through it and then make the change there. He's been there from day one. You want to show some respect and all that. That's completely fine. He's been your only coach you've ever had. So, announce this is his last game. If that's the move you're going to make. If you're not, well, then I have to question why you're doing this.
Well, I mean, at that point, I'm wondering, like, if you don't do it, if you do something at the end of the season, you don't do it now, are you kind of telling me, like, hey, this season's kind of lost and we don't think it can be rescued? Because that's the message you're sending me in that situation. If you think he's a lame duck and you're not going to make the move to the end of the season, then what message are you sending? That, okay, well, we're not going to make a change now because this thing's beyond salvageable. So we'll take our time and find some in the offseason, or there's no one that we see right now. Okay, but go for it. It's a playoff. The league is built on a playoff format. Go for it. Find a way to go for it. Get into Get into the playoffs. Be what RSL was last year. Get into the playoff on the last day on a sketchy call and then take out 2 scalps before you get knocked out. Like, go for it, man. It's a playoff format.
But
We can talk about other teams if you want. Go ahead.
I wonder where the ambition is from the top. I mean, you can look at the ownership group and sit there and say, okay, yeah, part of it's the Twins and part of it's the Wild. And we know what the Twins do when it comes to investment. You try to find young players and you try to sign them to long-term deals and you keep them around. You try to stay budget constrained.
No, it has nothing to do with this. They have a team that can play better than they are. I'm not giving them an out. I will refuse to give them an out of, well, they just don't have the players to play. Nah, it's not true. That's not true. You look at some of the teams in this league that are ahead of them, which is 14 of them right now. And that's, that's where they are in the season right now. They're 15th in the table. There's a bunch of teams ahead of them who don't have the same roster. There's teams behind them that have better rosters too. They have a fine roster. That's okay. You sign, Adrian Heath now, it's not like you went out and just completely got it wrong in overpaying a guy who's a bum. You're not getting anything out of him. Amaria's done well in Ecuador. There's plenty of players who have come from Ecuador and done well here. Why isn't he? I got to question the manager in that situation. You've had players come through there. They've got a team that can win. No, if that comes up, John, that's an excuse. That's not accurate. This team can win. And they should be doing better if they had, frankly, a better manager.
Yeah.
I completely, thoroughly disagree with that statement.
And I'm with you. I think that after the match last night, and I understand the idea of possibly waiting to the international break and then making some kind of a decision. I get that idea if that's part of their thinking.
I don't care how you do it, but you got to do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like after last night, you lose the way you did to a lower division club, you're done. And that's when you sit there and you make your statement. You use the international break with the assistants and whoever else you want to try to bring in to try to work toward the post-international break and work your way the rest of the season to get into the playoffs in the West, which you can do with the talent that you have on hand. Like I said, I'm still somewhat surprised that we haven't heard anything out of Minnesota this morning, but this might be their mindset in the overall, and that's disappointing.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to start judging on. I don't play the statement game or the timing game. I don't care when they do it. I'm not judging Minnesota because they haven't fired him already. I'm not judging them because they haven't said the right thing. I could care less. You got to make the decision. That's the number one thing. The game this weekend, if you make the decision this morning or last night or at 5:00 today or over lunch, it doesn't change anything about the game this weekend. It doesn't give you a better chance to win that, and then that makes you a cup contender. It does nothing. The question is, are you going to do it or not? And I don't know if they are, to be perfectly honest. I just don't know.
Well, people want to talk about other games as well. And KFC wanted to mention the Galaxy because Jesus Christ, LAFC.
What about LAFC? What? They lost. It happens.
They got slapped around a bit.
They lost 3-1. They didn't play well. Vela left in the 20th minute. Look, Carlos Vela drives that team. We know that.
That's where I'm at. Okay, that's where I want to take this. Is like we're getting to the point now where like Vela can't stay healthy. How much do you and so let's ask the question then. How much money do you want to pay a guy who can't stay healthy, who's probably going to want DP money?
I'm not. That's
yes,
what it comes
correct.
back to. Have not really wavered from this. I just don't think you can afford to pay him what he's probably going to be able to command. Since 2019. So you had the COVID year of 2020. We know there was, I believe his wife was pregnant as well during that. So there were other complications, but he was also injured. That happened. And since he's played in MLS, he's played in 41 games over 3 seasons. He played 20 last year. He started 15. He played in 8 in 2020, started 5. He has played in 13 and started 12 this year. So he's been pretty consistent this year. But he's been subbed out of 7 games. 6 goals this year. Now he's got a muscle injury, it sounds like. How long is he going to be out? It's seemed to take him quite a while to come back from these in the past. Last year was a prime example. Everybody yells at Bob Bradley for subbing him, and even Carlos Vela's yelling at Bob Bradley for subbing him. Then we didn't see him for half the season, it felt like. Can you pay him 5, 6, 7 million for 18 more months? Or if he wants longer than that, can you afford to do that? Not if you have the ambition that they say they do. I don't think he can. I don't think he can lead them any further than they've already been. And Jared, it goes back to the point that we've talked about before. And yes, if you are listening outside of the Atlanta area, or you're not a huge Atlanta United fan, like this podcast is based in Atlanta, but LAFC gets talked about as the team, the model. This is what you do. Look at it's all great. This is amazing. This is wonderful. They don't have as many trophies, and I think they're sliding away from that right now. I'm thinking the window's sliding down, and Vela's a huge part of it.
I would like to point out that I do, with the structure of it right now, I do like Cherundolo as a head coach, and I think things
he's been good.
Yeah. So I don't want it to be like a thing of like Bob Bradley left, so it all fell apart. Like
no, nobody said that. I'm not saying that. No,
I know, but I don't want that to become the conversation if it does start to slide.
No, also, the question's Vela.
Yeah. Also, the thing is, Bob Bradley's out there basically just Toronto. We're gonna have a talk later about Toronto. Maybe not today. We'll have a talk later.
We have talked plenty about Toronto, and nothing's changed.
I know
haven't got signed defenders, and Bob Bradley has control over who they sign, and he's got to fix that.
Yeah. But yeah, with Carlos Vela out, I mean, you had Rossi, who was so damn good when Vela was out, and was so good at carrying the load that one year. And you haven't been able to
move on him.
Yeah,
that was the right move.
Had to. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe even a year later than it should have been.
Absolutely right move. And yeah, that can be debated because I don't know what I think the market was a bit depressed at that point where you're talking about making the move. So maybe you thought if you waited out a year, you can get a little more for him because it's not a COVID market. But
I can buy that, and I don't know. I don't think he was salty because he didn't get to go and all that. I mean, he wanted to go. Obviously, I think that's why you make the move when you did. But okay, I can buy that. But you are where you are right now.
You got to find another. You got to find another talisman. And I mean, God bless Carlos Vela for putting together what's probably the best definitely the best regular season we have ever seen. But man, you can't count on him. At this point, you need another talisman. You got to do something, and you might have to make a really hard decision here about what you're going to do, and just how he's going to come back from injury.
Yeah,
it is what it is, and every team runs into those questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different conversation, but somewhat similar to Atlanta dealing with Joseph Martinez's injuries. Different kinds of injury issues and age and all of that. It's a different conversation, but you lose that player who in 2018, Joseph was what Vela was in 2019. Except, and this is a big except, except he lifted MLS Cup and he scored in the final, and he was clutch in the postseason.
He had a goal and an assist Carlos Vela had the best regular season we've ever seen. I don't know that it will ever be matched. Joseph's season is still the GOAT to me when you put the entire thing together. And you can separate those two and have them sitting side by side on a mantle, in my opinion. Because what Vela did was absolutely insane. What Joseph did in the regular season was absolutely insane because he broke a long-standing record that Vela then broke, 1 year later. But Joseph also scored in all of his playoff games, or not his games, all of his playoff ties, and then had a goal and an assist in the Cup final, won an MVP in the Cup final. Like that was just somebody who for 10 months was just absolutely on one.
Very important
in a different world.
Obviously, to his team's success. When he hasn't been there, you've seen the drop-off. I think there is a difference in the sense that you're not playing through Joseph, you're playing to him. to finish. You're playing through Vela. And when he's not there, it's a bigger effect, or it can be anyway, because then everything else changes. Everybody else's relationships on the pitch change. And look, frankly, Vela's out of contract here in about a month. And you're not at that point with Joseph in Atlanta. So get him healthy. You see what's going to happen with him. He's younger. Yes, he had a more serious injury, but he's not older like Vela. And has Vela been at his best? Can he turn back the years? I don't know. And are you going to pay him at this point? I don't know. I don't know where that stands. We'll talk to Niko Moreno about that in hour number 2. Other results quickly, just so we can bounce around a little bit before Jarrett leaves us. Hudson River Derby coming up in the quarterfinals as NYC and Red Bulls both win. NYC 1-0, 94th minute goal in extra time from Santiago Rodriguez of NYC. They win 1-0 in front of about 1,900, almost 2,000 people in Jamaica, New York. In Montclair, New Jersey, Red Bulls dealt with Charlotte 3-1. Wasn't completely easy. You had teams trade goals in the first 10 minutes. Nealis got one in the 64th. Barlow put it away in stoppage time. 3,500 people at Montclair. It was actually a good crowd at Montclair. I think they had to bring in some temporary bleachers. Nashville,
that was really cool to see.
Yeah, Nashville will play Orlando. Nashville, Mukhtar wins it in the 89th. Louisville took the lead at home through Brian Ownby. Then Akeloba equalized 2 minutes later. 8,600 people in Louisville for that match. Orlando, Miami went to penalties after they traded goals in extra time. Jean Mota with a great goal, answered by Facundo Torres. 11,500 at Orlando was the announced number. Orlando won on penalties.
Wasted one of the most.
Good.
Go ahead. Finish.
You were very angry at Bryce Duke.
Yes.
I was very angry at Bryce Duke. Well, I shouldn't say I'm angry at Bryce Duke.
He's a kid. He missed a penalty. It looked bad.
He is. He looked like a kitten crossing 285. God bless him.
And you had Yedlin follow, yeah.
Yedlin has been there, done that, and he puts it over the bar. He missed it. He doesn't get a pass for missing it. He put it over the bar.
No, he doesn't get a pass for missing it. He looked a little more comfortable than Bryce Duke did. And to your point, Jason, we discussed. Well, no, my thing is like the Duke looked just so rattled by the moment. And to your point, and we discussed this last night, Jason, to your point, he might have said, I'm ready for this, gotten up there, and
he might just knock him in practice. He might have said,
and the moment can be so different than practice. You can do it 1,000 times in practice, get in that moment.
Penalties are an awful way to decide a match, but it's really the only way. I'd be better with a shootout, but even same thing. You're still going to deal with pressure.
And I do want to reiterate your point from last night that big fan of Bryce Duke and what he can become.
Yeah, and I like Bryce Duke a lot.
Don't let that, like as annoying as that was to me, don't let that cloud your judgment on Bryce Duke as a player. He's a very good player. If in nothing else, I'm upset y'all wasted one of the most beautiful Panenkas I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, Leonardo Campana with some cojones on his
Leonardo Campana
to lead the whole shootout. Yeah,
he starts the shootout with a Panenka off the underside of the crossbar, like he's Zidane in the World Cup final.
Yep. But they don't get it done. Orlando wins on penalties.
Orlando's 4-0 in penalty shootouts in the Open Cup, by the way, in their history.
They've had some success in those. Omaha went to Minnesota and won. We talked about that. Sporting Kansas City 2-1 over Houston at home. It'll be Omaha and Sporting Kansas City in the next round. Back and forth one. Houston took the lead in the 41st. 2 goals in the second half for Kansas City. Russell in the 52nd. Penalty in the 73rd. 14,900 for Kansas City in that one. And El Tráfico, they had 24,000. LA Galaxy won with 3 second-half goals. It was 3-0, and Ryan Hollingshead scored in the 85th. Vela left in the 20th minute. Sacramento, 2-0 over San Jose. Goal in the 28th from Luis
Good call on that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan and I think John inadvertently and then got back on a fence, said Omaha. Dylan had Omaha, so you guys had that one. I called Sacramento. They had 11,500 in Sacramento.
That was a loud crowd at Hard Health last night.
Yeah, good atmosphere there. So it'll be LA Galaxy and Sacramento. It'll be Kansas City and Omaha. It'll be Nashville and Orlando, and it will be New York City and New York Red Bulls. Who is your way too early pick to win the Open Cup, Jarrett?
New York City.
Okay. Any reason why, or are you just picking out of thin air?
I think they can. I think they can, if they can survive Red Bulls. They are how I feel good about this because of the offensive firepower they can produce, and they can hold a clean sheet when they need to. Like let's not get it twisted. Like the goal you get, Farrell makes a really bad decision last night that leads to a goal for New York City. But the most important thing is you get to extra time because look, we know New England has struggled, especially defensively. New England's offense hasn't been the problem. Now, granted, Bruce Arena rotated his squad, which whatever, Bruce, whatever. Just don't talk to me, Bruce. At that point of the U.S. Open Cup, go for it. I don't want to hear your grumpy, snarky comments about rotating your squad and doing this, that, the other. Man, go for it in the Open Cup at that stage because you have a path. But I think New York City's got the offensive firepower to do it, and I think they can hold up, especially if they get opportunities to play at home, and play on whether one of the 5 fields they consider to be home. Make somebody
5 east of the Mississippi, yes.
Well, I don't know if they've played in every single borough yet, so we might have to get the rest of those. I'm waiting for the F. Trey Young chant to start at an NYC game. I think that's the only sporting event we haven't heard one.
Yeah, I don't think they're as shook by Trey Young as the rest of the 5 boroughs sports fans.
But the offensive firepower and their ability to kind of hold you in check, if not completely shut you down, New York City's where I'm comfortable right now.
Who are you picking, John?
I'll go with Nashville. And, when you've found ways to win late and you've scored when you needed to, you rotated last night. Joe Willis didn't start for, I think, the first time in like 7,012 Nashville games. Elliot Panico was between the sticks. You got through that one. I'll go with Nashville because sometimes late luck is what you need. You add that to the talent that we've seen. So I'll go with Nashville.
I'm going to go LA Galaxy. I think Greg Vanney is a really good tournament coach. They've been very good defensively this season. The goals have come and gone. But when you've got a guy like Chicharito, he can get you what you need in a cup game. I think they're good enough defensively to lock teams up. Nashville has that as well. But I think in Chicharito, the Galaxy have the guy with a killer instinct that Nashville lacks. And I think that's the biggest shortcoming of Nashville SC is you get into this one against Orlando. Look, I mean, I'll give Orlando a ton of credit in these kinds of situations. They got to a semifinal in 19. They made a run in the MLS's back tournament. They proved to be very weird and difficult in the postseason in 20 as well. They're not going to make it easy for Nashville, and it's going to be a fight. Is Nashville up for the fight? I don't know. I frankly don't know. They beat them in the postseason last year. I think Orlando was on fumes at the end of last season. Nani was gone and Mueller was gone, and I think they were just done. Orlando will make it a bloodbath. Is Nashville going to be able to deal with that? I don't think so. Frankly, I don't think so. So I think the LA Galaxy can. I think they're going to be the ones that can deal with it. NYC is the other one. If it's an NYC LA Galaxy final, man, US Soccer would be really happy.
Mm-hmm. They would be. Nashville, LAFC is a good shout there. I do have the same questions for Nashville. Like if this gets to a weird game in Orlando, can Hani Mukhtar rescue you again? And what happens if he can't? I just have quite the whole that game is going to be. I feel like we said this a lot about Nashville games. That game is going to be chippy as hell too. Mm-hmm. Like Orlando and Nashville, that's going to be. The fuse will be very short.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that I think can give Nashville problems is games like that. I don't know where their attitude and mentality is. So we will see where that goes. Couple of other things before you leave, Jarrett, real quick. Roma and Jose Mourinho get the Europa Conference League championship, the first ever. Mourinho, second manager to win 5 major European titles. Won the Champions League, won the Europa League, won the UEFA Cup. It's a unique one because he adds the inaugural Conference League to his title. I think he's got a Super Cup in there somewhere too. what does this mean, if anything? I mean, outside of winning the third-tier European competition, I think some people are trying to play the card that Jose is back. I'm not necessarily buying that, but he can succeed at this level, I think.
Yeah, I think he can. And the thing that got me about it, in a wholesome way, was the the end of the semifinal, and then yesterday. This meant something to him.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, there's a level of wholesomeness there that I know that people have their opinions on Jose, and those opinions have soured in the last decade, really, in the last 5 years more so. I thought
and
the Tottenham
they should.
I thought the Tottenham All In documentary was an interesting look at him, but it was cool to see how much this meant to him after going from the top of the mountain to kind of tumbling down the mountain and hitting different stops along the way. He lands at Roma and takes them. And look, I get it's the third major trophy in Europe, and it's the first time we've done it. Europa Conference League is drunken mess, and we love it. We endorse it wholeheartedly on this show. It was really cool to see how much it meant to Jose, that it wasn't I've got a Champions League. This means nothing to me. No, man, it meant something to him. That's awesome. I don't know what it means for his future. I hope he gets to enjoy that moment, though. And I hope Roma fans do too.
No, 100%. I mean, it's great for them. Like 100% it is.
I don't really have any opinions on his future. Like he kind of has regressed into what he is at this point.
Yeah, he has. The game's passed him by in a lot of ways. But he can still have success at this kind of a level for sure. So he gets it done.
Yeah, and if this is his last hurrah, this is his last great triumph, then cool, man. Enjoy it. Enjoy the pictures. Live in the moment with it, because it's been a hell of a career. It's a shame that it's gone downhill the way it has.
I don't even know if it's a shame. I mean, it's just it's what happens more often than not. I mean, what we've seen with Pep and Klopp and how they've developed, and what we've seen with Carlo and everything that he's done, like those are the anomalies. I think what Jose has done is the typical run for a great coach. I mean, he changed the way that teams train. It's really easy to look at Jose as a caricature and respect and all that. It's very easy to look at that and forget that teams train differently now because of what Jose brought to the table, first with Porto and then going to Chelsea. It's easy to forget about what he really helped implant at Chelsea, a winning attitude, a winning vibe. I mean, that started with him. It's easy to forget that amazing year he had at Inter, where he did the treble. He had an amazing season at Real Madrid as well, where they went over 100 points. I mean, he's had incredible runs, but he hasn't really evolved. So the game is passed. He's still good, but he's not going to be at a Champions League level winning club with the expectation to win, in my opinion, anymore. And that's okay. That's okay. He said something afterwards, and this is important. He said, I was told only I, Sir Alex, and Giovanni Trapattoni won trophies in 3 different decades. It makes me feel a little old, but it's nice for my career. Trapattoni is the only other manager to win 5 European titles, major European titles. Not league titles, like European competitions. So incredible accomplishment. Mourinho is one of the all-time greats. Great to see him get this for Roma, but for him as well, and have the moments that he did.
Yeah, it's an awesome moment for him. It's an awesome moment for Roma. I'm sure they'll be testing Nick Levy, despite his surely drunken and hungover state, still enjoying the Scudetto. But yeah, it was a fun inaugural. If nothing else, man, it was a fun inaugural season for the Europa Conference League, and hopefully next year is just as drunk and beautiful.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's established the tournament as something to pay attention to and something that matters. So that's what you want out of the first one, and Mourinho is a big part of doing that. You're back with us tomorrow. No, you're not. Actually, you're not, Jared. So
Potentially,
you're goodbye for the week.
It's possible. That's up in the air now.
It's up in the air now.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, we might see Jared before the week is over. We might not.
I'm sorry.
He's a hard one to nail down.
Yeah, true story, bro. All right.
Buying stuff. All right, John, tell us about our good friends over at Eliminize.
I can do that. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Rotor-free, clean, fresh air. One place you need to go. It's Eliminize service, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Lemonize Service have created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes and food. It's a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. You can also use it to make sure that they sell or rent their homes that much faster, and that's always a good thing if it's something that's on the market these days. Kind of the environment. We like that. It's a very green way of going about things without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than our favorite masking agent that we have under the sink or wherever we have our masking agents in our house, condo, or apartment, because when you take that out, you spray it in the air, it's a masking agent. That's why it's a masking agent. That's all it does. Covers up the odor, doesn't attack the problem. Proven scientific formula by our friends at Lemonize does that all the way down to the molecule. Pricing is easy. One of two ways, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. You have questions, frequently asked or otherwise, there's one place you need to go, and it's the website, lemonize.com. But do us a favor here at SDH. After the .com goes /Atlanta, so they know what part of the world that you are contacting them from. So the full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, lemonize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air here on a Thursday as we all gather our Thursday thoughts. Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of everything, SDH.
Nicely done. We'll be live tonight at Anderby Brewing in Peachtree Corners. Starting at 6:30 on the Twitch. We'll be there probably about 5:30 or so. Jack Collison will be there from Atlanta United 2. Greg Garza will be there, our good friend from Beyond Goals Mentoring. We're going to talk a lot about the twos, kind of dig deep, not so much into like just this season and how game to game has gone, but big picture of the twos, the role in the club. We're going to talk about player development a lot tonight. Also talk about Jack's career in the Premier League with the Welsh national team. So live show will start on Twitch at 6:30. We will be there starting festivities about 6 o'clock. Not a giant space, so get there early. It's going to fill up pretty quick.
Especially with the weather in the area that they're thinking too. So if you want to be outside, you might have to be inside.
If you want to be outside, you might have to be inside.
Yeah, normally because there'll be folks at Anderby that will be listening outside that, with the patio, and they'll bring their pets and things like that. But there's thunderstorms possibly in the forecast. And so if you want to normally be outside to listen to our show, you might have to be inside for this one. So you might have to get there a little early.
Okay. So get there a little early, and we will see you there tonight, Peachtree Corners. Some other things on the board today. Copa Libertadores last night. Julian Alvarez, 6 goals in an 8-1 win over Alianza Lima. Man, the way that Alianza Lima has fallen, the way that some of the Peruvian clubs have fallen, sad to see. I mean, Alianza Lima is one of the most historic clubs in Peru, one of the most historic clubs in South America. And they finish in the Libertadores this round with 1 draw and 5 losses, 4 goals scored. They'd already conceded 8 before this one. They concede 8 more in this last match to lose 8-1. They were eliminated, but still, it's bad. I mean, Julian Alvarez is going to be the story. All the talk about Erling Haaland going to Manchester City. Well, Julian Alvarez is coming in the door too, and he's not just going to sit around and watch Erling Haaland do his thing. So it's going to get very interesting as for a team that at Manchester City didn't have a number 9. How could they play without a number 9? This is craziness. I don't understand it. How can they do this? They scored 99 goals this season.
Pretty well,
They
actually.
did pretty well with it, yes. And then they just went out and signed one of the best number 9s in the world. And for people who maybe don't understand that the game is played, Kylian Mbappe, I'm talking to you, by the way. The game is played in this hemisphere, and especially in South America, and it's played pretty freaking well. Julian Alvarez is an incredible talent who could be at the World Cup with Argentina at the end of the year and could be scoring goals with Manchester City in the fall. It's going to be really interesting to see. Kylian Mbappe's comments are really bugged me, talking about how Argentina and Brazil don't have any challenges or whatever. And Fabinho's like, yeah, you ever been to Bolivia? You want to go play in Bolivia, Kylian? I don't think you've ever played there. Yeah, why don't you go try that one there, buddy? It's not even getting into just the challenges of going to Uruguay, going to Ecuador. going to Colombia. Yeah. Brazil and Argentina are good because they're good. And if they were in a group with Andorra or San Marino or Luxembourg or Liechtenstein or, whatever the bottom team would be in the group, they would probably win that really big. And you look at the way the groups are divided up in Europe, and you want to talk about World Cup qualifying being a challenge? It's not really for the big teams in Europe. And when they make it a challenge, Italy, we're talking to you right now. That's on you. That's on you. It's not because North Macedonia is better than Colombia or Uruguay or Chile or Peru or any of these other places. It's because you didn't get it done. So Kylian Mbappe talking like there's no competition in South America. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it, man.
The last European qualifying group that France was in back in 2021-22, Ukraine, Finland, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Kazakhstan. 5 wins, 3 draws for France. They scored 18, gave up only 3. That was their last qualifying group.
Who finished second in the group?
Ukraine with a record of 2 wins and 6 draws.
Mm-hmm. I know Ukraine is in a different situation these days, and their upcoming playoff is going to be interesting to say the least. I don't think they qualify out of South America. I definitely don't think anybody beyond that qualifies out of South America. So stop. Just stop. You're playing home and away against that set of opponents. And in South America, you have played everybody home and away. And it is a marathon. So it just stop. The reasons why you haven't seen Brazil and Argentina win a World Cup since France has, and France won the last one, it's not about the level of play. It's not about the level of play at the national team level. The national team level is great. It's the nature of the game in this hemisphere. It's the nature of the game in South America, where clubs have had to sell players to survive. So the club side of things is different. And Peru is one who has really struggled with this. They've not been able to keep up. Their national team has come back. I think a lot of that is down to Ricardo Gareca and the incredible work he's done. But the club game, the league, is just really bad right now. Doesn't mean Peruvian players are bad. But when you get these situations where you have instability domestically, whether it's league, whether it's with the federation, whether it's at the national team level, it's more of a struggle. That's a different conversation than a French federation that has all the money they could ever need, that has their players playing in pretty much all good situations. Yeah, a different conversation entirely. And I don't think France is the favorite in this World Cup. I think Brazil is. And that pains me a little bit as an Argentina fan, but I think Brazil's the favorite to win this World Cup. Do they get it done? Yeah, last time I checked, winning the World Cup's hard. And as we've talked about with Champions League, like, you get a draw. You then see who gets into the knockout stage. If Brazil wins their group like they're supposed to, and then whoever was supposed to win the group that they're drawn up with doesn't and falls into second, then you have a really tough round of 16 game that you had nothing to do with. And you might lose because you might be playing a top team in that game, or you didn't expect to. Welcome to tournament play. It's not always the judge of who's the best team and who has the most talent. So Kylian Mbappe, please stop talking. You got paid pretty well right now. Why don't you go to a beach somewhere and enjoy your money? Stop talking. Or schedule France to go play in Bolivia and see how you like it.
There you go. Go fly into an airport that's carved into a mountainside and play at altitude and have to do home and away with that kind of stuff. Good luck with that one.
Yeah, just deal with the challenge of having to play good teams in different environments. You don't get going to Bolivia is a different challenge and they're generally the bottom with Venezuela in South America. It's a different challenge than going to Liechtenstein or Luxembourg or San Marino or Andorra or any of that. It's a completely different conversation. I hope the Peruvian domestic game can figure out a way to start a resurgence, because this Alianza Lima result, it should be setting off alarm bells in a big way that should have already been going off. The Peruvian Federation has done a great job supporting their national team. They might need to look at some of the things that we saw from Bielsa during his time at Chile in terms of overhauling youth development, player development in the domestic game, maybe Gareca would be interested in having some of those conversations and creating at least the roadmap for what's next. Because when your big club, your biggest club of all time, Alianza Lima, loses 8-1 to River Plate, it's a national embarrassment, and it's a shocking one. Big game tonight in the Libertadores. Boca Juniors hosting Deportivo Cali. Boca needs a win, and probably they're going to have to win this because I don't think they're going to get the help they need in the other group. So Group E, Deportivo Cali, other game in the group. Deportivo Cali 2-1 or 2-1-2. Corinthians 2-1-2. They're both on 8 points, 1-2. Top two go through into the knockout round. Boca's in third. Right now they would fall into the Sudamericana. They're on 7 points, 2-1. Club Always Ready is out of it. They're in fourth place. I guess they could technically get into the Sudamericana spot. Not likely. They are on 4 points. They go to Corinthians. Club Always Ready on the road. Not exactly strong. They have not won a game on the road yet. Corinthians should win that. So it comes into a playoff game between Deportivo Cali and Boca. Now, this is at La Bombonera. If Boca doesn't win and Corinthians wins as expected, then Boca goes into the Sudamericana and gets knocked out of the Libertadores. If they win, they go into the knockout round. They're coming off of the Copa de la Liga title. They beat Tigre. They have kind of had a bounce back after a rough season at different points, but the Libertadores campaign has not been up to par. And this will not be an easy one for them against the Deportivo Cali side, who all they need is a draw. They got to go to Buenos Aires and get it, but they don't have to win this. Can they get a draw on the road? Find out tonight. It starts at 8 o'clock. Should be a really good one to watch.
Both of those games, Boca and Corinthians are favorites. Corinthians is a minus 5,000 in the juice boxes. Boca is almost a minus 300. Your draw option with Boca and Deportivo Cali is a plus 360. Deportivo Cali to win is almost a plus 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, Boca's the favorite. They're at home. They have it in their hands, but can they get it done? Going to find out. They've had a draw in their 2 games at home so far this round. They got to win. They had a draw. They last time had a draw with Corinthians. That's not going to be good enough for them this time around. Deportivo Cali has gotten a draw this time around. They went to Bolivia and got a draw. They lost at Corinthians in the first game. They got a 2-2 in Bolivia against Always Ready. If they get a draw, they're fine. So how do they play it? That's going to be the question. And can Boca continue the momentum after winning the Copa de la Liga? We'll find out tonight, 8 o'clock. You need a second game of the night to watch? You can go to Mexico. First leg of the Liga MX final. Atlas hosting Pachuca. Kicks off at 10 o'clock. Pachuca was the best team in the regular season. Atlas was number 3. Atlas is the defending champions right now. They won the Apertura. So this sets up for a great final. Should be a really fun final to watch. What are the numbers for tonight?
Juice boxers have thrown up their hands on this one. Basically, both teams are a plus 180, and your draws within the margin of error at a plus 188.
That's a little surprising. I figured Atlas might get a little more respect at home, but their home record hasn't been great this season. 3-2-3 in the campaign. On the road, Pachuca was the best team. They won 6 games out of 9 on the road. No draws, 3 losses. They had more points on the road than anybody else in Liga MX. Pachuca's been the best team this season. They've been the best team that I have seen. They've got a plus 15 goal differential, 12 wins out of 17. If they manage the first leg in Guadalajara, I think they're going to be fine. I think they'll win the second leg. They've just got to manage this one. They're not really a sit-back kind of a team. I mean, 30 goals in 17 games, that's tied for the most in the league. They are tied for the best defense as well. They're a complete team. I don't think they go in there and play negatively, but I don't think they are wildly open. I think Atlas is really going to have to take it to Pachuca in this one. And I don't know if they're quite at that level. I just don't. They're going to need more than a draw here. They're going to need a win, and I think they're probably going to need a win by a couple of goals because Pachuca at home should be able to take care of business. They did not lose at home in the regular season. I think Atlas needs a multiple goal lead going to Pachuca.
And you look at Pachuca's home form, you mentioned that. 3 on the board in the last round of the playoffs against Club America. Then it was 3 against Atletico San Luis in the opening round of the Clausura playoffs. So they've been putting up numbers at home traditionally. They did it through the playoffs, and they did it in the Clausura as well. So, yeah, I think that if Pachuca manages, considering what we've seen from them at home, I think it's theirs.
Some U.S. men's national team news. Brendan Aronson undergoing a medical at Leeds United this morning. That move seems to be all but done at this point, barring anything crazy coming up on the medical. What do you think about Aronson in the Prem?
I think that I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what Jesse Marsch has in mind for Leeds United, and what
he's got in mind.
Well, I mean, player-wise. I'm not talking philosophically. I'm seeing it player-wise. I want to see the players that he wants to bring in that are a part of this. Keeping Jack Harrison obviously is a part of it, but I'm obviously intrigued with the addition of Brendan Aronson. But I want to see where else he goes to try to make this team his own as he tries to keep Leeds in next season. But no, I like this one. I know that folks are looking at that £30 million price tag, but hey, if you see someone,
what are folks looking at that about? What's the issue?
I just, it's like, well, what? It's the American stereotype.
Do they have the money?
Oh yeah, they do. With Rod Rosani and then the San Francisco 49ers are.
Is it going to affect their ability to do other business?
No, it does not. It will not.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah,
yeah.
But like I said, I think I'm intrigued to see who else Jesse Marsch wants to bring in. This to me is that first piece of the Jesse Marsch puzzle for 22, and I want to see who else he brings in.
It's guys that fit the system. I mean, he's going to be a system guy. Bielsa was a system guy too. The system was different, but it's going to be guys who fit the system. It's going to be guys who he knows. I mean, if Tyler Adams' name comes up, I'm not going to be shocked. If Serginho Dest's name comes up, I'm not going to be too shocked. That started to bubble up a little bit, maybe just because, USMNT and Jesse Marsch, he's American. Oh, yeah, okay. Dest has also been linked with Manchester United because of the Dutch connection there with Erik ten Hag. So, look, the way that the English media is going to report most of it is going to be, can we find some connection somewhere on their Wikipedia page? Yes, there we go. Rumor. I could see Dest fitting into Marsch's system. It's not insanity. I could see it. I don't know what his price tag would be, and I don't know where that would fall and what would make sense for him with what we've seen so far from him. I think there's a bigger question for the USMNT here that's not just Leeds United related, but they're going to factor into it potentially with somebody like Tyler Adams, who's not a regular at the moment at Leipzig with managerial changes. He's on the outside looking in. He's going to get playing time, but he's going to need more consistent playing time going into a World Cup year, going up to World Cup season here, really, is the first half of it. Dest is in that bucket as well. I don't see Pulisic being somebody for Leeds, but Pulisic is going to be in this conversation. McKinney possibly turns into that conversation, even though he did everything he needed to do at Juventus. They might look to go in different directions. They're already talking about Pogba coming in. That would take one more central midfield spot. So Leeds might be one of those clubs that picks up, they got Aronson, but he was playing consistently. Maybe they get an Adams or a Dest. Maybe they get, an American, a USMNT player who needs playing time going into the World Cup. There's going to be quite a few who are in that realm that are going to be needed to make moves this summer. And I'm very intrigued as to where they end up.
Yeah, and for me, we've mentioned the Tyler Adams stuff as well, heading in as rumor that because of insert connection here. Yes, obviously he's going to be attached to Leeds, but No, I'm looking forward to Leeds United. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jesse Marsch can do, and I'm looking forward to this build and seeing where it goes. Not just necessarily attached to the United States players that may be going there, but who else he feels fits that system and wants to bring in to see what Leeds can do.
I mean, but we've been paying attention to Leeds since Bielsa went there. It's not like Leeds has become more of a team to pay attention to for non-Leeds fans. I know Chris Ashley's out there yelling at us. They got everybody's attention with the Bielsa move. They were a team that, yeah, if your team wasn't playing and Leeds was on, a lot of times you're going to turn that on because they were interesting. Now, this is different, and this is going to have a little bit different appeal because Jesse Marsch is kind of waving that flag right now for U.S. managers in Europe and in the Prem, where they have been treated badly. Bob Bradley probably still has a giant chip on his shoulder from how he got treated at your beloved Swansea, but they did him wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done Jesse wrong with some of the comments, and he's gonna have that chip on his shoulder start to grow too. Can he deliver? Now, he's different than Bob in the sense that I don't know, at least I don't think publicly it'll be as obvious if he has that chip on his shoulder. He's saying and doing all the right things to downplay it. He's also much more rigid in terms of a system of play. And will that help him or hurt him? Going to Leeds, it is a logical progression from where they were with Bielsa. It's not the only one, but it is a logical progression from Bielsa's style to Marsch's style. But it does change a little bit of what kinds of players you're looking at. You're not looking at guys who, frankly, are as talented on the ball to fit that style. You're looking for guys who are great in transition. You're looking for, something that we've talked about with Marsch. And I think it's a little bit different conversation because of the level he's at now in play. He's not at the RB Leipzig level. He's not at the Salzburg level of where they were expected to be in the table. He's at Leeds. Mid-table would be a great season for them right now. He's got to get better defensively. And it's funny because everything that he does is based on defense, but it's defending far up the field. He's got to get better defensively with his team. Can he make that progression? Can he adapt to where he will be in these games? The defensive side of things came up against big teams at Leipzig, at Salzburg, Champions League, or big matches in the Bundesliga and the time he was at Leipzig. He's going to have more of those games here where he's not going to be able to dictate the terms that the game is played on, because you're going to go up against a Manchester City that, oh, you want to press us? Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's fine. We're cool with that. Do it. Let's go. You're going to play against the Liverpool, who can do that and can also flip that around on you. You're going to play against a Chelsea who's going to have some of the best players in the world. You're not going to be able to control games with your style of play as much at Leeds. It's because they're not at the same level. So how does that go for him? That evolution will be fascinating to see and what he turns into as a coach. Very thoughtful coach. I'm really rooting for him. I've been clear in saying this. I don't love the style of play. I never will. But I'm rooting for him to succeed. And I'm really curious to see what he does adapting to his situation in England, but also just the league in England, because it's different than Austria. It's different than Germany. It's different than MLS. It's different than the places he's been. So how does he grow as a coach? How does he get it done? And can he get Leeds solidly into the 9-13 realm, 8-12 realm, maybe scratching at the bottom of the European spots? Can he get them there? And how does he do it? Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I mean, this first full season with Marsch, obviously you're looking for a progression, get to that 13, because there are some teams in that bottom section of the table that, like a Southampton, you don't know which version of Southampton you're going to get. What can Brentford do in their second season in the Premier League? There are some teams that I think with, the level of investment and the growth and what we're looking at from Leeds, with Jesse Marsch in charge, I think that you can get into that discussion of being in 13th because of that group of folks that were in that 14 to 17. I think that, you get some wins here and there, steal a point. You're not getting it blown out as much as you were at points this season with Leeds. I think that you can get into that, that 9 to 13 discussion, and then from there continue to progress, possibly to be, chasing Europa Conference League or something like that. Not next season, but in 2 seasons or so.
I think the teams you just mentioned, if Leeds isn't passing them fairly quickly, then it's a bit of a failure. I mean, Leeds is better resourced and should be higher than Brentford.
Mm-hmm.
They should be higher than Southampton, I think.
Yeah.
They should be getting into that. And look, I think they took a little bit of a step back on their progression this past season. I think they held on to the group that got them to this point 1 year too long. I think it showed. I think they held on to Bielsa 1 year too long. He had never been anywhere this long before. I think it got stale. They needed to freshen it up. I totally agree with this being the move to freshen it up. It's the right spot. But now they've got to get back to where their progression was taking them. And I think it's establishing themselves in the middle tier and then growing from there. But they've got to get established in that middle tier.
Yeah.
And that should be passing like those kinds of clubs. They shouldn't be looking at those clubs as equal competition. They should say, we're ahead of these guys and we got to show it now.
Yeah. You look at, here's your list from 9 to 16. Brighton, Wolves, Newcastle, Palace, Brentford, Villa, Southampton, Everton. That's your 9 to 16. Leeds finishing 17th.
Everton's complicated, but Everton should be bigger. But we got to figure out the financials with Everton going forward. They're a complicated situation. Brighton, I think, has established themselves at a higher level right now. Wolves has for a little while. I think Leeds should be able to get to that point. But outside of Everton, really, I mean, are any of those clubs bigger than Leeds? And I'm saying bigger, I'm not talking on the field. I'm the basic idea of big club. I don't think any of them are. I don't think Brighton's really a bigger club, but I think Brighton has established with Graham Potter that they are a better club right now. Leeds and Everton both should be looking at that like, yeah, we should be 9. We should be 10. We should be 8. We should be in there solidly ahead of these teams. You got to go earn it. But I think that's where they feel like they should be.
Yeah. I mean, you take Southampton, you take Brentford, you push them down. That puts you at 15 with a working base. And then you look at those other clubs that are there. We know that Newcastle, they're going to want to continue to spend and work their way up the table too. Crystal Palace, they seem to be.
Newcastle's in a different league than Leeds and Everton. They're in a different league because of what they can be. Like, They've got to continue to grow into that, but you can't compete. Like, honestly, like Manchester City, Liverpool, you can't compete with them. You can't compete with Chelsea, and it looks like they're going to still be Chelsea and maybe even be Chelsea on steroids. So they might be in the City Liverpool group. Newcastle will be. It's a matter of how long it'll take. It's the next tier. Manchester United should be in that group. They got to show that they're smart enough to be there. Does an Arsenal or a Tottenham try to spend to the point that they get to that level? I don't know. Can they bridge the gap in other ways? I don't know. I think there is, Newcastle, like, you can't put in this conversation anymore. They're not the Newcastle they've been for 20 years. They are a Newcastle that will be. There's not an if. It is a will, because they're going to be able to make mistakes and spend their way out of it and do what they need to do to be at City and Liverpool's level. And Chelsea's. I think Chelsea, with sounding like 200 million, starting to figure out what they're going to do now that everything's approved, they will be in that conversation as well. Manchester United should be, but they've been too dumb to be there for a while. Newcastle will be able to be there if they get things right. And if they don't, they'll be able to spend their way out of the trouble. Like, it's not going to be, they're not going to be in the conversation that even Chelsea and Manchester United will be, whereas if they do dumb things, it's going to take them longer to fix it. Newcastle can just outspend their way out of the trouble.
Yeah.
And City and Liverpool can do that too. We'll see. But Leeds, I mean, they're not going to be at that level unless there's a dramatic change in the way the club is owned and the money, the resources that are available. That's just the reality of all of it, and you got to be fair about it. I mean, that's best thing they can hope for is to be fifth. Does that mean 1 year may be crazy if things go really well and things go badly for somebody else? Can you get into fourth, third, second, first? Yeah. Are you supposed to be? No. That's just the nature of the Premier League now. That's where it's going to be.
And chasing after that 9-13, going into the 22 season.
Well, you got to get to that first. Like that's the whole point. Is Leeds, I think, can be in that next tier, but they're not. And you don't go from getting back into the league and then fighting your way to stay in the league. You don't go from there to ninth straight away. You got to establish yourselves. But they can get into the 5 to 9 category, but they got to get into the middle group first and get established because they're not a Newcastle who can spin their way there. And that's not, I'm not diminishing Newcastle fans, Alex, don't get upset. It's nothing about that. It's just the reality of having the resources. They're going to be able to spin their way into a section where they haven't been established for a long time. That's why the ownership bought them. That's why they're doing what they're doing. Leeds won't be able to do that. But Leeds can get into the middle, and I think if Jesse Marsch gets them solidly into the middle tier, then the question is, can he progress them further to where they're competing for a last Champions League spot, for a Europa League spot, making a run in those kind of tournaments? That's going to be the conversation that's next. All right, conversation coming up on SDH next is with Niko Moreno. What's up, Niko? How are you?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Happy to be back with you guys. Excited to talk some soccer. Let's go ahead and do it.
Let's start as we started the show with Minnesota United. We have had our conversations over the last few months on Minnesota. There's a new quote that I didn't have earlier that I want to share with you from Michael Boxall, center back for Minnesota United. He was asked on what is said to teammates after a game like this. He said, it's just something that top to bottom within the whole club has to go home and take a look in the mirror tonight. It's not reflective of what we want to be as a club. We have a few young guys coming in and we expect them to do better, but we have a 16-man squad tonight with some healthy players sitting in the stands that could have helped us tonight. 30 to 40 minutes tonight isn't going to kill anyone for the weekend. Everyone, top to bottom, needs to have a good look in the mirror if you want to be a professional footballer. If you want to be involved in this club, then that's far below the standard that we want to set. I didn't know that was going to come up. Adrian Heath said it was embarrassing, said it's on him. Responsibility's his. I'm not getting the players to perform the way they needed to. He did say that some players didn't perform the way that they need to. I'm back to the same conversation that we've had before. How long is it until Minnesota makes a change? Because they are not going to win, and they're not going to be anything more than where they've been, a fourth place team in the Western Conference. That's their best record ever. They're not going to progress past that with Adrian Heath.
We've said this for quite some time, guys. I mean, it's no secret. I'm not sure if they are blind or they act like they're blind, but it's something that's coming to a point where now, if I go back to the press conference that Adrian Heath had here at Lumen and was talking about basically blaming players for mistakes, and we can't be losing games with mistakes. And now players are shooting at the coaching, front office.
Player selection.
It's becoming unbearable. And, they're both right. And there's just a point where a relationship hinders the play on the field, regardless of talent, and the ability for a coach to get anything done because the players no longer believe in your system. They no longer believe in your theories, right? So if you can motivate, if you can strategize, if you can get these guys going, then you are just dealing with a ship that's just sinking, and you're taking in water, and you're doing nothing but ignoring the fact that your whole lower deck is full of water. So that's just simply on the organization. They got to take a deep, good look and start to fix things up, because otherwise they're going to sink to the bottom of the league. And once again, they're going to be a laughing stock when you're talking about a team that has some talent, that has some quality, and that should be doing a lot better than they are.
Team that has a great fan base. They have a great stadium. They have resources. They're not a team that doesn't. But from the beginning, it's felt like the plan. You know, you look at what teams who came in. Atlanta came in the same year. We know the difference. LAFC came in a year later. We know the difference. And it's not just because they spent money. It's more than that. Both have developed more players than Minnesota. They haven't developed anybody. They haven't scouted well. They haven't developed guys that they brought in that have done something in other places. I mean, Luis Amarilla is a prime example of this to me. Amarilla has been hugely successful in Ecuador. How many players have we seen come into this league from the Ecuadorian league and do well? Not Amarilla.
Many. And that should be the case. And guys who weren't even as successful, like Christian Dahome, who has done well in Vancouver, and I mean, you could look at Javier Arriaga and just all kinds of players around the league that have come from that Ecuadorian league and been successful. So it is coaching, and it's not just Amarilla. I mean, it's Chacon that never worked out.
Oh yeah,
it's Bebello, who you can't get him to be consistent all the time. I mean, it's just about everybody in this squad that just simply cannot get beyond a certain point. Osvaldo Alonso was in that team. He got him to a certain point, but in the playoffs, they just couldn't do it. There's always a internal barrier that does not allow this team to be successful. And we know what it is. The fans know what it is. The only people that just don't want to see it is the front office. So this change has got to be made. Yesterday's game was a prime example. They had so many chances in the first half. There's ability to just, add to that lead. They get an early score, which is great, and they're just unable to manage it. And they allow Omaha to just get back into this game. There's a ton of mistakes defensively and getting out of the back, and that causes goals. And the team just has no resilience to get back from those moments because there's no belief in the system, and there's no idea that the quality players that you have on the field are experienced enough and leader enough to snap a team out of a couple of bad plays. So once again, regardless of the team you're facing or the lack of talent that team has, when you have no cohesion, you can't win games.
So then who do you get? I'll make you GM in charge for a day. What kind of names are you looking at for Minnesota to take over in a situation like this?
Ooh, man, that's tough. I mean, because my first thought would be go abroad, go ahead and get one of these young South American coaches that could bring you something different. But I felt like there has been certain success and certain balance and stability to get in maybe an assistant head coach. So why not a guy like Freddie Juarez maybe? Why not go ahead and get a guy like Marc Dos Santos out of LAFC? Maybe someone who's done it, who is known in the league, that has been through good and bad times in MLS and could potentially come in and help you at least get above the line because you're not far from it. You have a decent squad. So just play it simple, just like that. So a guy like Marc Dos Santos to me would be a prime example of someone who I believe it's good when it comes to strategy. He's known around the league. Yes, he's at a good position, probably wouldn't want to leave, but I think if you tempt him enough and you put a good offer with this particular squad, he might take the job.
Yeah, I'm not as sold on Dos Santos. I still would love to know everything that happened in Vancouver. You're not the only one though. I've talked to so many people who are so high on Marc Dos Santos. I'm not seeing it as much. I look at somebody like Danny Cruz, who's with Louisville, who's done really well and has a team playing in a really good way. Now he's young. He doesn't have as much experience, but he's been in charge in Louisville and he's had a nice run for them. He's got a good team playing on the field right now. There's other guys in the second division that I think are really interesting that you could be looking at. But yeah, it is a balancing act because there can be some big wins if you go outside the league and you bring in somebody with maybe more experience, maybe a little bit higher level of experience. You look at, I've mentioned Sebastian Becasese at Defensa Justicia many times, a Sampaoli, trained guy, so Sampaoli, then you're going a step up to Bielsa, like Becasese's in that realm. He's a little bit of a hothead. He would be fascinating for media cover in the league, but would he come in and be successful more so than somebody who maybe knows the league, whether it's a Dos Santos, a Juarez, who've had an experience running teams in the league, or somebody like Danny Cruz, who played in the league and now has experience the level below.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what you got to see, right? I mean, because I look at what Miguel Angel Ramirez has done with Charlotte, right? It was a new franchise, probably not as much time as Minnesota has, but creates a system, a good build-out play, a good defensive, solid foundation there, and you have success. I think a guy like Fabian Bustos would be someone that would be fantastic in this league. I've said it over and over again, because he's that guy that, regardless of the talent around him and his roster, he's going to come in with his own curriculum and make these guys perform at a high level. So it is a balancing act, and it'd be interesting. But at the end of the day, we're talking maybe at a mute point, because it seems like Minnesota has no desire to get rid of Adrian Heath. And I'm not sure, after all these years and what I've seen, that he's going to be the guy that's going to be like, all right, man, I resign, because he hasn't done it yet. I feel like, out of respect, for me, just talking about Niko Moreno, I just couldn't do it, man. There's a certain point where, and last night might have been one of those moments where I'm, getting my bags ready and sending you a letter.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to play this. They could go and get one of your all-time favorites who's available, Reynaldo Rueda. Bring him in. Why not? He's available.
I don't wish that upon nobody. Come on, Minnesota fans, you'll take me. Absolutely not. Go ahead. Bring anyone else. Go ahead and get anyone else.
I'll give you somebody else who's got experience in the league, but is kind of in the same conversation. Osorio.
I knew you were going to say that. At this point, I'll take Osorio over Reynaldo Rueda. At least he'll be exciting. He'll be interesting. He'll give you long Spanish talks about breaking down play and what each position's supposed to do. I mean, yeah, it'd be exciting. But, Reynaldo Rueda would not just put you to sleep in the press conference, but he'll make you pull your head out during the game. So nobody wants that.
Here's another international person who would have experience understanding MLS at least a little bit, because they've been close by and now they are available and they've had success. Ariel Holan, who was at León, who has played against MLS teams during his time at León, but won the Sudamericana with Independiente. Players from those teams are now in MLS. Holan would be a really interesting hire for them if they went down that road.
Oh, I agree. I would sign that up.
I like that one.
In all seriousness, out of all the guys that we've mentioned, it's not just realistic, but it makes sense. He's a guy that is well liked and known as well in South America and Liga MX. He might help you to pull some guys this route in the very way Almeida did at some point, and the way that Gonzalo has been able to do for Atlanta. So yeah, absolutely. He's a guy that has also a very good system, very solid. Early with León, you saw that in the way they played. When it comes to roster construction, I thought he did a fantastic job as well at León. So yes, sign him up. If you don't got his number, give me a call.
You are welcome, Minnesota. There's the move you should make. We have figured it out for you.
Absolutely.
So, Niko, let me ask you about the lower division clubs and what we've been able to see from them in this tournament. Obviously, with Union Omaha making their way into the round of 8. Sacramento last night putting 2 past San Jose at Heart Health, including an absolute rocket from Rodrigo Lopez from about 20 yards out with 10 to go to put that one away. What have you noticed and what have you observed from the lower division clubs when it comes to their impact in Open Cup this year?
I just think that with the growth of MLS, there's also been a growth of USL level guys. There is a lot of talent to disperse. I can tell you that there is sightings of lower division team scouts in South America, and they are doing a great job at bringing a variety of guys. I think that teams like Sacramento that have always been resilient, they've always been good, they have a very strong fan base. Those organizations are giving the fans what they want, and they get good quality teams around. And Louisville was impressive what they did against Nashville, regardless of the team that Nashville put on the field. So it's literally a reflection of just growth of soccer in the United States. I've been very impressed by a lot of these games. Yes, sure, Montreal just handled their business and all these things, but you see some parity in a lot of games, and it just goes back to how much soccer has grown within the United States. So it's exciting to see. There's also a little bit of some teams not taking it as seriously as they should, or perhaps just having the need to rotate guys in specific moments and things not going their way. But I do believe that for someone like me that's covered so many of these games at the U.S. Open Cup level, and I see some of the teams that we've had here and comparing them to now, I mean, it's really a night and day thing. When I think about 8-9 years from today, how things have developed and grown.
Yeah, I mean, calling games in USL Championship with Atlanta United too, the level is just absolute night and day from 2018 to now. And when you see the level of player that's being developed outside of MLS, outside of the academies, the level of coaching has improved across the country. The level of, I think, just stability with some of these teams. They're able to go get guys out of Central America who can come in and do well, who maybe are not MLS level guys, but can be paid well and make a good living. I mean, you go back 10 years ago in the second division and the third division, you had clubs that were just trying to keep the doors open. You worried about checks bouncing. You weren't going to recruit guys to uproot their family and move to the U.S. Now, if Sacramento comes calling, yeah, you're good. If Omaha comes calling, you're good. That's a place you want to go and use that as a jumping off point. The level is better. The players that MLS is producing that don't quite make it, that stay in that second tier, that third tier, same thing. There's just more talent than ever before. It's great to see. It is something, though, in a cup competition. You mentioned it, that teams sometimes have to rotate. It's not the league. I think every team has a different conversation about it. Maybe the biggest surprise for me last night was New England, that rotated so heavily. And in a year where they've struggled to get momentum going, they were never guaranteed to beat New York City, and even in Jamaica, New York, in a small venue. They were never guaranteed to win that, even if they go complete first choice. But I don't think they helped themselves with what they did last night, and they need some momentum in a bad way.
Yeah, but that's just Bruce being Bruce. At the end of the day, can't nobody tell me nothing. I mean, that's just him. I mean, that's what Bruce is about. And you're right. If you are looking at a game that could give you some momentum, that could give a fan base that's in dire need, in a drought of wins, if you will, then you give them something to kind of go for. Look at Sporting Kansas City. I mean, at least they're, giving their fans the ability to continue to dream about something, and stay away from the reality that has been an awful MLS season. And, Russell gets a big banger, and maybe that, helps the team in their own performance, and it just has a certain effect. So as a coach, you have to look for those moments that can ignite this team to move and become a momentum shifter for the season. And you could do that. Bruce, once again, completely misses on this one. And now it's not doing great in MLS play, regardless of the win that they just got, and then they get completely bounced out of this competition. So it's just difficult to understand what Bruce does sometimes. But, he the man.
He is. He'll tell you. So you mentioned Kansas City. I want to parallel off of that a little bit. So Kansas City has had awful luck with injuries as well this season. They were missing 2 of their designated players. You're not able to replace them like for like. You see the effect it has had. They also, for some reason, didn't re-sign Ilie, which I still don't get because now we know how much he's making at LAFC, and they could have afforded it. So they're struggling. Atlanta just keeps getting more injuries added in. Now we've got Andrew Gutman out for 8 to 12 weeks. Came down on a aerial duel. It's an issue where he's going to miss extended time. Joseph is getting back into training. Maybe he's in the squad this weekend. Who knows? But they keep finding ways to get results. And they did it again in Nashville after sitting around for 3 hours waiting to get this thing finished. And it's Dom Dwyer after an incredible ball from Almada to Lennon and a great cross from Lennon. It's not where they want to be, but they're getting results where other teams that have had injury issues just aren't.
No, and we talked about it, guys. And man, if you're following this show and you're using that to get your books, your juice boxes in, I mean, that draw. I mean, I don't know if anybody had that, but we did, and it was definitely one that showed what this team can do because of the talent level, because of Thiago Almada, that for me had my favorite performance of the weekend. I sat down and watched a good 5 games that I didn't get to see because of the delay. I couldn't really stay. I had to go, went back, looked at the game, and man, I mean, it was my favorite performance on just how he exploded space and how creative it was, and his vision and his ability to impact the game. So for a guy his age, someone who's just coming into this league and is adapting as quickly, man, that's just beautiful to see and exciting for anyone who roots for Atlanta United or just likes good soccer in MLS. So definitely a difference when you have the Marcelino Morenos and you got, the Thiago Almadas and all those players that have come to the aid of a team that just continues to get hammered by injuries. So you got to give credit to Gonzalo. You got to give credit to this team and to not, it's very easy to just kind of let your head hang low and just be like, man, there's nothing we can do. This team's not doing that. They're staying strong. They're staying within the games. And that's all you want to see from a squad that is in the circumstances.
So then let me go back and mention, now, do you still call it El Trafico even if it's an Open Cup?
Yes. We went through this yesterday. So. It's still a stupid name. Yes.
So
awful name.
All right. So
Thank you, Nico. I knew.
Then let's go back down the Old Town Road and talk about LA Galaxy and LAFC here. With Kevin Cabral sighting with a goal and probably a hockey assist, LA Galaxy puts up 3, and we got to see Chicharito, and I think that's the Chicharito that fans were looking for. You can take this and work that kind of momentum, hopefully, with the Galaxy going forward. Carlos Vela leaves again in the 20th minute with, I think, a quad injury. I think that was the initial reports on air last night. So it was another round with Galaxy and LAFC. What were your takeaways from this one and how it could work its way forward in MLS play?
Yeah, I think it's good, right? I mean, once again, I think I have spot on, not bought into this team as much as some other, analysts or people watching around the sport have. But they have good players, and yesterday was a result of it. I feel like the LA Galaxy does rise a little higher when they play LAFC. I thought Raheem Edwards, he talked the talk, but he walked the walk. And I really enjoy a guy that's willing to just come out the rivals just the way he did. And he was fantastic, in both sides of the ball. Once again, I've talked about his consistency over time. So that willingness to just defy the typical press conference and just maybe spark something within your team. And you saw it immediately in this game. In terms of soccer, yes, I thought Cabral was as good as I've seen him. I thought that Chicharito was all over the field too. That Rancier goal ends up because of a movement he makes to kind of occupy the center back, right? So the team just has quality players, and perhaps still, to me, not as deep as they should for MLS play. But yes, this can spark a great moment for this team, and you are playing for a title, and that's all you can ask for, Greg Vanney. And this specific time, you put in a good starting lineup. You are going out there and getting results. They were a team that was aggressive, and an LAFC squad that I thought, if they weren't asleep, they I don't know, had a nap in the bus right to the stadium, but they look so flat. They were doing a lot of ball watching and allowing LA Galaxy to take momentum and to build the tempo of the game. And when they did have chances, they didn't put them away. So once again, good for LA Galaxy. And I think that this is a win that can build up their season and their ability to continue to do well in MLS play.
It's funny. I mean, coming from somebody who hasn't coached in the Open Cup as a head coach before, Greg Vanney, during his time in Toronto, Canadian Championship, a little bit different. And especially like in previous editions, like it was very small. He took it very seriously, and they were coming off of a bad loss on the weekend where Chicharito basically called everybody out, and they delivered. And it's the difference between them and what New England did that I'm with you. I think it's a little bit of a potential kickstart for the Galaxy. But my big question coming out of this is now Carlos Vela is not under contract at the end of June, and it hasn't gotten done. And now he's injured with a quad. We might not see him again before his contract is up. Are they going to re-sign him?
Man, it's a really interesting situation because of everything that Carlos Vela means to this fan base, what he's been able to do. And honestly, a lot of the marketing purposes that he does fit. I mean, unfortunately, and I hate to say it, but, having a guy like Carlos Vela is kind of a game changer when it comes to that aspect. But you got to see how much money you're throwing at him and exactly how much do you want to pay for that in particular. Because I tell you, I doubt he's going to take any type of hometown discount. No. I mean, he's not about that life.
If he would have done it by now. Yeah. That's what I keep coming back to is, I mean, it's May 26th. His contract's up June 30th. And it was talked about weeks ago, like, no, it's done. It's fine. It's all going to be signed. Well, it's not. And now he's hurt again. Yep. And that's a tough, like, how long is he out? He's missed a ton of time over the last few years. How much can you afford to pay him where you don't know how much he can contribute? He is incredibly valuable to that team, but can somebody else be incredibly valuable to that team that you can get starting July 7th?
Yeah, and muscular injuries at that age can be a little bit lingering. So you got to take a good deep look and figure it out. I think there are guys that can come in and perform, but, there's always that aspect of surprise. If a guy can adapt, if it's not a good fit, is he going to come into this locker room to, play and get respect? I mean, it's a difficult decision to make. But if I had to say, with the injuries and the age and the price tag, I don't know if it gets done, to be quite honest. It's going to be a really tough decision for the LAFC to really come up with this. And look, in this game, I get Palacios also gets out. It's difficult, but you have to be able to come up with adjustments to make your team better. And yes, it was even in the first half, and then you kind of lose it late in that second half. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to having the replacements, being able to do it. This is the deep team. So Greg Vanney, being who he is, he probably has a little bit to say on that Carlos Vela front, that he doesn't have maybe that long relationship that's going to maybe not allow you to make clear, cold-headed decisions and maybe more with your mind than with your heart. So because of that, I think maybe we might have seen the last of Carlos Vela.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think we're on the same page in terms of, like, this is a risky deal if they do it. What I look at is if they do it, you're going to have to do probably 18 months at a minimum. That's a year and a half. And it sounded like he was wanting 2.5 years. If they do it, if they say, you know what, it's too valuable at this point, we can't get somebody to replace him the way we would want to, that we have any guarantees, are they, in your mind, potentially setting themselves back as opposed to setting themselves up for more success because as good as they've been, they've only got one supporter shield to show for it. They haven't been to a final in a normal year. I know CCL, the year that they didn't have to go play in Mexico to get there. Are they hurting themselves by doing it if they re-sign him in the long run?
Yeah, I mean,
I think so.
Eventually they can, right? Because, every time that I've talked to GMs around the league, that DP spot is the same thing as a first-round draft pick in NFL.
Yes.
When you make the wrong choice, it sets your franchise back years in terms of salary, in terms of, getting a guy in early to just work for what you want to see in the future. It's always better to look 3 years in front of you than just one. And I don't know if this team, or I don't know if the LAFC has shown us enough to say, put all your eggs in the basket this year and you're for sure going to win the MLS title.
No,
I don't see it. Not at this moment.
No.
So if that was the case, if you had a team that you were like, oh, yep, it's Carlos Vela away from a title, then you make that decision. But I don't think that's the case here. So, yes, you got to think about the future. You got to think about who could be an option and make that decision. So I'm with you. I think we're all in the same page that it could hinder an LAFC team that hasn't lived up to the hype, to be honest, because of everything that surrounds the LAFC, from the star power and everything that they've done and what they've been able to accomplish to a certain level, 100%. Western Conference Finals, they've gotten far, but never quite there. So that's what it's going to be all about.
So would you, Wednesday morning, you wake up Wednesday morning, you're GM of LAFC, would you sign Carlos Vela to that deal? Would you get everything done, get him in the barn, and now here Thursday morning, would you sign him again to get it done? Same terms.
I don't think the injury changes it, honestly. I don't think the quad injury changes what I would do, because I'm with Niko. Like, I think it's a 3-year process, because I think that's what he wants. I think he wants 2.5 years. I don't think you're going to get him for less.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, if I was able to get him for a year and a half, okay, I might be having a little bit different conversation. The injury doesn't change it for me. If anything, where I'm already leaning, which I don't think, I mean, Niko, you tell me if I'm wrong. I get the sense that the conversation around Carlos Vela is, of course, they're going to re-sign him. Why wouldn't they re-sign him? It's a no-brainer. Sign him. I don't think it is. And if there's anything that the injury does, it just reinforces my feeling that it's not the right move. But I'm not changing my decision because I would have already made the decision not to go down that road.
I'll say very simple. In a perfect world, I'm signing Vela for less money and a short contract, and I do that immediately. But that's not the reality.
Agree. A year and a half,
is not going to do that.
Yeah, agree. Totally. I would do it.
The player's not going to do that. He's not going to take a pay cut, and he's not dumb. He understands and knows his body. He wants, like every player, you want assurances. You want that long-term contract, and I'm not willing to give you that. So if you're willing to get off that horse and tell me, hey, I'm going to give you 18 months, you're going to get a pay cut of this much, and you're going to happily take it and still perform for me, yay, come right on. But that's not the case. So if I was a GM, I'd be very much like Garth, and would have had a list way beyond this year that I've already scouted, looked at, thought about, talked to my entire scouting team about, my coach, can this guy fit? And I'm already thinking I'm going to live without Carlos Vela. This is the guy that's going to come in and help us out.
Yeah, if I wasn't able to renew him before the season started, I think that would have already made my decision for me, and you would have had to have made the plan. Now, I mean, then the question is, to somebody else in the league, because we've never seen this. We've never seen a player become a free agent in MLS rules, and I don't even know how they're going to handle it, because, I mean, if this was an off-season situation, he doesn't re-sign, he's a free agent, and we know the free agent limitations. Well, now he's out of contract June 30. He qualifies for free agency. He would be a free agent. Doesn't Miami make a run at him? They've been linked at one point in a rumor with it. Do they make a run? Does somebody else make a run who's in that conversation, like you said, Niko, of a team that feels like they could win it right now if they have Carlos Vela? Or does a team in Spain, which seems like he's kind of waiting to see if anything materializes in Spain, And I keep throwing like a Club America into the mix, who needs a high profile thing to happen going into the Apertura. Do they come in with a lot of money on the table? If he doesn't re-sign with LAFC, where do you think Vela's playing?
Could you repeat the last part, bud? You kind of broke up.
Oh, if he's not at LAFC, if they don't re-sign him, where do you think Carlos Vela is most likely to be?
Man, I really do think that he goes out to a middle table team in Spain. I really do think that's where he wants to go. That's where he sees himself, and he has enough relevance to perhaps do that much. But once again, I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to pay him what he's making here. So at the end of the day, if you're living well and your family's good, and he seems to be a real family guy, maybe you do try to remain here. But I think that if something doesn't get done, his pride, his ego might just take him out into Spain.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to have a huge effect on MLS the rest of the way. Anything else from the weekend in MLS that jumped out to you, Niko? You talked about going back and watching a lot of the games. You mentioned Almada's performance. Anything else from the weekend that jumped out to you?
I like Nashville overall, what they've been able to accomplish in general areas, and quite honestly, what they can do in the Western Conference. I think that Seattle really needs to take a look at this next 5 games at home. They have a 5-game homestand. They got an international break where we spoke to Brian Smester. He wants to give everybody a mental and physical break. They're a team that has never been without the playoffs, but that needs to win this Charlotte game on Sunday and really build off of that. There's no more room for mistakes. So I think they're a team that, even though they lost a very frustrating one in Colorado, I thought that the VAR really missed the call there with Raul Ruiz contact in the box. But that's what happens. So interesting is seeing what happens there. And yeah, I think that's most of what I really put together. Philadelphia was interesting at Portland, just continues to show you how consistent they can be. And, they're really the team to beat at certain ways in the East because of that identity and the ability to win games. I thought they had a good game against Portland. So those are some of the things that kind of stood out to me in general from the weekend. And I'm excited to see what this one that's coming up brings.
What do you have coming up over at Pulso Sports and Sounder at Heart? Anything else you're working on?
Well, we have right now interview with Guzman Corujo, central defender and captain for Charlotte FC. Really good talk with him. On and off the field, he knows Nicolas Ladero. He's part of Nacional Montevideo. So really fun one there. If you guys want to go check that out in our YouTube channel, you guys are more than welcome to.
Yeah, he's an interesting one to me. I wasn't sure how he would fit, but he's been a great fit for them, a great leader for Ramirez and Charlotte, a good piece to build around the back line.
Absolutely. I mean, they're coming from a good win against Vancouver that just continues to just tank it in MLS play.
On the road,
yeah,
for sure.
but it'll be an interesting game, though, here in Seattle, this Charlotte. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, and intrigued to see how Charlotte fares on that kind of a trip. We'll talk to you next week about it, man. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
All right, boss. Take it easy. Have a good one, guys.
Right. Make sure you're following El Rolo NW on the social media platforms, Pulso Sports as well. That's going to do it for us. We're back tonight. Anderby Brewing, Peachtree Corners, Jack Collison hanging out with us, Greg Garza hanging out with us. We're going to talk about Atlanta United as part of our Kaiser Permanente segment. Dig into the way players are developed, how a reserve team fits into that. Some of the success stories, things like that with Jack Collison. And we're going to talk about player development a little more from the mental side with Greg Garza, Beyond Goals Mentoring, Atlanta United, the legendary left back. So that's tonight, 6:30 on Twitch. We're in person a little bit before that at Anderby Brewing in Peachtree Corners. Weather's supposed to be so you might want to get there early to reserve a seat. It's not a huge space inside, but there's plenty of room for you if you come out and join us. So that's tonight. Join us real in person or virtually, and we'll be back tomorrow morning to get everything set up for the MLS weekend. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Much plata, y'all.
Much plata, y'all.